Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 397 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here, and am I excited for you to meet my guest today. She is a dear friend of mine. She is someone who is, you will hear me talk about this in the episode, but she is one of the most authentic, genuine cheerleaders of other women I have ever come across. She was the final guest we had on the International Women's Day podcast that we had last month. And that was because we felt that her message really spoke in a way that women needed to hear, could go off into their lives and keep in mind. And she really has a way with words that you're going to hear about today. So my friend Lorna Mann is on the show today. Lorna is a brand specialist for Lululemon. She's involved with a lot of their activations, many of which you will have loved and enjoyed over the past few years. She's a trail runner, and as I mentioned, she is someone who just continues to give so much love to other people and continues to inspire me to be the best version of myself. So I want to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors. Then we'll be right to this episode with Lorna. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been working with Tracksmith for 5 years now. I have loved every moment of it, the support that they give to me, the support that they give to the running community. I want to remind you that there is still time for you to get the PR bonus. That's getting $100 off your next Tracksmith purchase by setting a new PR in 2024. Be sure to go make the most of that opportunity while you still have it. That is a huge give from Tracksmith to support runners in their pursuit of goals, whatever that may be. Doesn't matter how fast your PR is. If you can prove that, you will get that $100. Go check that out right now if you have not already. You can go to tracksmith.com/Tina. But I want to talk to you today about, I mentioned about 5 years ago, Tracksmith sent me my first pair of session speed shorts. These are high stretch, they're lightweight. They have about, I guess I shouldn't say at the inseam because it's different for men and women, but they do have this shorter inseam, and it's just at the right length on my leg. Now, that first pair of shorts they sent me, I still wear multiple times a week in a row, wash it, wear it again. It is my go-to. I have used it hundreds of times, and it is still the exact same quality it was when I first got that pair. These shorts are my favorite by far, and they are something that I continue to use year after year. I encourage you to go check out those session speed shorts and the other items that Tracksmith has on offer. Remember, Tracksmith is known for their quality, their durability, which is one of the best ways we can be environmentally conscious. You can go to tracksmith.com/Tina to check out my favorites. Be sure to go check out that PR bonus if you have not already. Lorna, my friend, I am so excited to have you here on the Running for Real podcast, and I cannot wait for everyone to get to know you. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is such a gift.
The energy is bubbling. I'm like, okay.
It is.
Champagne cork has been popped.
Yes, and I want to tell everyone listening that Lorna a few days ago texted me and was like, "Oh, I see we're recording, and I don't know if you're going to be okay to record because I'm still, stitches, no weight bearing. And do you want to push it off?" And I was like, absolutely not. I do not want to push it off because I selfishly wanted to talk to you myself. And so I'm glad that we have been able to go ahead, and my body is functioning okay. Your schedule is clear enough so we can do it, and we can get this together. So people might recognize your voice. You were featured in our International Women's Day podcast and social media clip that we had. And my team had to go through 50 or 51 different clips, audio clips, And for my team member, Sally, yours was her absolute favorite. And I wasn't surprised whatsoever that that was her choice, because you just have this way of speaking, particularly when it comes to supporting women. And we're going to talk about some of that today. That is unlike anyone I know. I loved watching the Lululemon Further event through your eyes, just because I know the way you are, and I can imagine how much you would have meant. I know how much you would have meant to those women. And so the International Women's Day clip that you gave, we chose to put it as the last clip. And that was because we just knew that you would be the one that would stay in people's ears, that they would take through their day. And so I want to begin with talking to this piece of, have you always been able, I feel like you more than anyone else, you are able to put aside your own wants, desires, your ego, your insecurities, and just 100% show up for other women? Has that always been something in you? Like, where did that come from in you?
Thank you for seeing that in me, first and foremost, and thanks, Sally, too. Love. Short answer is no. I would always... I am my dad's daughter. I have mum and dad, but dads have daughters, mums have sons in my mind, and I have a brother. And I grew up as dad's girl, and not because of anything, but I think I saw other women as threatening competition, like people I would never be like as a child. That's how I remember growing up. But I had girlfriends, and I had my circle of friends were female, but I somehow didn't always feel like I belonged. And it's really funny no one's ever asked me that question, so reflecting on it, I'm like, it sounds so not natural, but I did struggle with friendships with women growing up as well. So kind of became, as I grew into myself and as a teenager, I kind of became a bit more of a solo adventurer. Not making plans at weekends, not being a part of team sports, not for any other reason than that's where I felt I belonged, which was not there. If that makes sense.
So it was a conscious choice to be like, I've got an invite to this, but I'm going to choose this instead. Or was it kind of a necessity? You didn't feel like you were welcome there? I'm sorry, we're jumping right in there.
No, I love it. I'm like, whoa. I think it was a choice of mine to think I had already talked myself out of feeling like I belonged there. So just and felt way more at home with mum, dad, brother. Like just that small family unit. That's all we have. And that's all I really needed. So didn't grow up with I'm in this amazing global world in running, and we'll come to that, I'm sure. Hundreds of people and hundreds of contacts in the phone, and wherever I go in the world, I will never be alone. But growing up, my circle of 4, we were a tight unit.
Wow, yeah. And I mean, there's so many things I could say to that, but I want to go back to the first piece you said, which was that you didn't always feel that way. You did struggle with other women. And I'm just so in awe of how you've been able to get to this point by now, to where you are fiercely supportive of other women. And, we will talk in a little while about, some of the times that you have maybe struggled with that. But I feel like I'm constantly working on this, and I still feel like you are light years ahead of me. And so I'm really in awe of how you managed to get to that point 20 years is a long time, but it's also not, because of all the other growing that we are doing. And so those solo adventures or being with your family, how did that continue to foster you when that's not the typical direction that most teenagers would go in, to choose their family, being with their family unit, or doing things on their own over doing it with people, at school with them?
I think what it allowed me to do is having parents that loved, supported, and wanted to have memories together gave me a real sense of myself. And again, this is the first time I've ever reflected on this. But I'll also share that I then left home at 17. I grew up with them and then moved in with a partner that I still have dearly, bless his heart. But I upped and went at 17, which is very young at the same time. So I grew up very quickly, but in this kind of wonderful closed shell. Like, I didn't grow up with this huge community around me. And I think having the self-assurance of, I'm an adult now and I can go off in the world. And I also started like paid employment 17, 18. I was the youngest in my year. So left school in July 17, August 18, was able to legally in the UK have a pay packet. So I went into full-time employment as a very young person as well, and started a career as a very young person at age 17, a career that I held for 20 years, which, I then decided was part of my identity. More will come with that, I'm sure, later. But I think it allowed me to step into, I know who I am, and I'm getting to know myself even more as I grow. But I think it just allowed me to let others in and maybe allow me to see others more, because I had a bit more. And don't get me wrong, there's flaws I see in myself every day, and that's fine. But I don't know. I know as I grow and as each year has passed, I've allowed those flaws to not perpetuate into what I see in others. They're almost a mirror now. So whatever I'm not. You could grow up feeling jealous that someone went somewhere, looked a certain way, acted a certain way, had an opportunity that was different to mine. But now I celebrate it, and I've grown up because of the self-assurance of I am where I need to be, which is, paraphrasing what I shared with International Women, of appreciate where you are right now and celebrate where you are right now, no matter where you want to or could have been before, or where you're going in the future. You can celebrate it all if you just take that moment to be confident in where you are right now.
And is it in those moments where something comes up for someone else, do you go back to reminding yourself, be where you are right now, celebrate where you are right now? Or do you feel like over time, as you've practiced it, it has become those thoughts of like, well, she has, or I want, have faded away?
I think it's definite fading, but also what anyone else has and they want to celebrate is worth celebrating. So it doesn't really matter, and it takes a lot to take you out of it. If I want to cheerlead for someone, I want to cheerlead for them. I'm not cheerleading for me, cheerleading for them. Doesn't mean it's not about me. It's about them. It's about whomever. So you can be on the sidelines of absolutely anything, maybe whether it's a degree that, where we're celebrating someone's masters or we're celebrating someone's miles, we're celebrating them. And the byproduct is, yes, you feel amazing and your experience is enriched for doing that, but it's more, being able to see the spotlight on someone else is the most amazing and special thing in the world to share with someone.
For someone who struggles with that, they recognize that in those moments, they feel those kind of jealous, envious kind of gremlins coming up in them. And I do sometimes too. Like, there's certain things that people do, or sometimes even, I'll be honest, like people that I seem to struggle to really celebrate as much as I want to. And I feel like I've done a lot of work on this, but it's still there. But for someone who is trying to do better in their life and they're trying to get to that place, but it feels very unnatural, what would your advice be to that person?
Let me put it into running, and I've just watched the London Marathon happen recently on my doorstep. And I have a private little cheer spot in mile 7, which is where I first saw you last year. And it's the best spot because you're around a corner and it's sweeping. And I will get there for when the first athletes come through in the wheelchairs to the elites, female elites, male elites, championships, all the way through to fridge on the back. And I can't run the mile they're in, and I can't be in the shoes of anyone else's shoes. You know, I am stood still as me. But I know, having run that race and worn those shoes, that I absolutely am empowered myself when someone sees you and cheers for you and says, you're doing okay and you're doing this for the right reason. Or, you know, one of the most powerful things that was said to me during the New York Marathon was, remember your why. And I think that would be my biggest advice for anyone that struggles is, what's your why in the moment? And ask the other person what their why is, because that takes out a level of emotion for the end result. I will never run a 4-minute mile, but I will celebrate the 4-minute miler if I understand their why.
Yes.
Or the 12-minute miler, or the 15-minute miler, or the 20-hour miler. I don't care. But what I really care about is why they're doing it, and how are they going to feel at the end of it. Whatever the why is, will connect you. So take away the feelings of, I'll never get there, or I will never be that in that place, or have what that person has. But I can connect to their why, because they want to do it, because they want to grow, because they've had some sort of setback, physical, mental, emotional, whatever that might be. You can actually connect to that element of whatever it is they're going through, and I guarantee you it will take out any level of jealousy gremlin.
It's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality, and that's why for almost 6 years I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 is researched and developed by an in-house team of scientists, doctors, nutritionists with decades of experience in their respective fields. So many people have asked me if I do actually take AG1 every day, and if I do believe in the product, and trust me, there is a reason I've been with them for so long. Quality for AG1 isn't a buzzword. It is a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and rigorous testing. At every step of the process, AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards. I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because they obsess over product quality. The standards of manufacturing partners and sustainable practices are unparalleled, and I just really admire the extra above and beyond that they do to make sure that is the case. Taking care of my health shouldn't be complicated, and AG1 simplifies this by covering my nutritional bases and setting myself up for success in 60 seconds. 1 scoop, once a day, in water, and that's all you need to do. That covers all your bases. I have been using it obsessively during my recovery time to make sure my body heals, but I use it all the time. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes folate, magnesium, and ashwagandha for stress support, which my body is needing as it is in healing period. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Tina. That's drinkag1.com/Tina. Check it out. That is beautifully said, and such an important point. I've never had anyone put it that way before, but that makes so much sense. And now I'm wondering, I think before that race, I probably put out publicly why I was doing London. And so you probably knew my why, even if you and I hadn't had a separate conversation about it. Or maybe we did, I can't remember. But
I can't remember, if I'm honest.
But I've said this to you, know this, and I've said this out, and people, I'm sure if you follow me on social media, you will remember the photo or the set of photos of me running next to Lorna at mile, was it 21?
21. Mm-hmm.
At mile 21 at the Run Dem cheer station. I mean, the joy on both of our faces, is honestly one of my favorite photos of all time. It is just, it's joy. It's joy in a photo. And I love that. I can't remember his name. Bit Beefy is his Instagram handle.
Corey, yeah.
Corey, yes. Corey took those photos, and so now I see that you would not only celebrate that moment with me, but you were, I don't know, maybe you didn't, but you knew what stage I was running, what stage of my life I was in for my running, and so we could just celebrate that moment together. I'll probably put that photo up when this episode goes out so people can look at it, because it is seriously one of my favorites ever, because just both of us were just on cloud nine.
I've never run so fast in my life for 20 meters. I can't slow her down, but I want to hold her hand.
No, it's truly the best. Okay, so I want to rewind a little bit and take you back to, okay, so running is clearly important to you. You've brought it up. You've used it as an example. You're on the Running Through podcast. Take us back to your relationship to running in those fundamental years when you were figuring out who you were, when you were with your family a lot, when you were kind of discovering who you wanted to be. Where did running come into the picture?
My first memory, it's not even my first memory, it's my father's first memory of running for me. I have the most epic, and I'm going to send you this photo after. I have the most epic photo of myself. I have these little woolen gloves with little faces on, and my father is saying, "Don't run." And I am literally looking up at him, leg up, running. And he's telling me to slow down. And I think that's where the runner was born. She must have been 3.
I love that.
But that, and growing up, I would never sit still. Rest was not part of who I was as a child. They put me in the pram, I'd wiggle out, and I went missing on a family holiday, like just off I went. But that being said, I could, from 3 years old to 29 years old, running didn't figure in my life. Yes, of course it does. At school, you're made to. And of course, at school, I chose the hardest thing in the world to do, which was cross country at the time. But that wasn't, I would never describe myself as someone who ran. And I did not own a pair of trainers that would enable me to run until I got to the age of 29 years old. And do I regret it? No, I can't regret it, because it's been and gone. So not important, but who would I be if running was in my life earlier? Who knows? I'm very grateful for who I am right now. And so that, again, it's not necessarily important, but what I will share is that you're never too old to start. I guess is like one of the wonderful cliches that I can confirm is absolutely true. Because if I may, at age 20, like what did age 29 mean? I was 20. Oh no, sorry. I was very much into a career in film and entertainment PR. I was the stereotypical PR girl, and I was living a dream, a red carpet dream, and a world traveler dream, and so on and so forth. And I'm only sharing this because that person was also the first at every event and the last to leave, and the life and soul of every party in 6-inch heels and designer label dresses that I'd borrowed from other people. But I wasn't healthy or happy. And this is part of the journey of, like, being in the film and entertainment world is amazing, but for me, and why I have since left it, is because it wasn't who I was. It wasn't true to who I am. And what prompted me to start running, I was in a very different body and in a very different mindset. And it was the Christmas party, and my boss, who was the CEO of the film studio in which I worked at, and he said, "Lawrence, you never run a marathon?" I was like, "Yeah, well, it's 4 a.m. and I've never run a mile. It's 4 a.m. I've never run a mile." And I said, "Yeah, I will, but what am I going to get if I do it?" And he was like, "Well, you can have any pair of shoes you want." And it's like, brilliant, give me the credit card. And it is the worst introduction or way to start running. Like, I hate myself for telling this story. Because
Wait, for context, I literally have absolutely zero idea. Like, how much could a pair of shoes cost of what he was?
Thousands.
Okay.
Like, and in my brain, I knew exactly the pair I want, and I got them, by the way. Spoiler alert, team. But I got into it to prove someone wrong. And that was December, and I'd gone a whole 8 months. It was August, the following year, August 2012, because it was the Olympics year. How could I forget? I woke up one August on my way to work. I was on my way to a music festival. I was taking a very famous movie star backstage of a film festival, and I felt terrible.
Wait, were you running at this point? Was this?
No,
this was before.
Not running.
Okay,
still not running. So December to August, we were pushing and pulling. You'll never run this marathon. I will. I'll do it another time, but I'll do it. And then I woke up this August on my way to have this glamorous day, but feeling horrible in my body, just tired, ruined from the week at work, not really looking forward to the day ahead of me, yet it would be what people would pay millions to do as their job. And I walked past a gym, and the gym's shut now. It was on St. Martin's Lane. I walked past the gym and I went, I'm running the marathon next year, and I need a personal trainer to get me in shape. I didn't have a marathon spot. Still didn't have the trainers. I didn't even have the kit. And they went, okay, you'll meet with this person on Tuesday. We'll see you then. Here's your pay for your membership, off you go. And that was the start of that journey. I thought, right, I need to do it. But that's when I started doing it for myself. It took 8 months to realize that, yes, this, competition with my boss, and that I couldn't have him win, was the catalyst, but it took that long for me to realize that this body and this mind space deserved a lot more. So that was the start of the change of my life, thanks to running. And on the Monday, I emailed a charity that I was very passionate about, and I said, look, I want to run the marathon, and I know I can raise a lot of money for you. I didn't know how, but I was like, I want to do this. And they said, fine. I got into the following April. So 2013, I ran my first London marathon, and I ran my first ever marathon, having never run a mile before. And I've never looked back since.
Oh, that's an amazing story. And I love that you said about, you kicking yourself for the reason in the first place. But I actually think for a lot of people, unless you were someone like myself who even my story started out a bit negative. I didn't want to do it at first, but I think for most people, unless they are extremely gifted, it ends up being, is a negative connotation around it. There's a negative reason. It's either I want to lose weight. It's a bet. It's I'm going to do this because I want to prove someone wrong. There's all these negative reasons that people do start. But even 8 months is quite a short period of time to process through that. For a lot of people, that they start that, and it takes them years, decades even, to unpack that, to find more beyond it, or to let go of that. And I was talking to you before we started recording about how I feel like for me with food, I'm getting to a place where I'm able to make choices that I couldn't in the past because it had become very tangled up with my identity. But I feel quite proud of myself right now for being able to make choices that are good for my healing without them being that little voice in the back of my head saying, oh, you're doing it because you don't want to put on weight. And I think often we take a while to detach those negative reasons for doing something from what we're doing. So I really love in that moment that you were able to figure out that was who you wanted to be, what you wanted to do. You recognized that you didn't feel good and you wanted to do something about it rather than doubling down or saying, well, this is just how it is. So
could have done park run rather than the marathon, though.
Yeah, you definitely could have done a park run. But that's a lifestyle change, right? It's not like a park run. Would that have changed? You could have done that carrying on as you were. So tell us about when you finished that first London.
Oh, I finished that first London and very much was one of those runners that didn't identify as a runner and didn't feel like she belonged at all. even though I had a whale of a time and every photo is me beaming brightly, even though I did make severe, terrible outfit choices, but we won't judge. But I really, like, they're the only marathon photos I have and they look terrible, but it's fine. But what I will share is, like, 2013 for me was, Twitter was just exploding as a social media app. And my inspiration, I ran everything on my own. I ran every training mile on my own. I didn't want anyone really to be a part of this journey because I felt too slow, because I didn't feel comfortable in the space. But I had the motivation to get up and do it. But I was definitely, this is my practice, and I wasn't willing to let anyone in. A bit like that gal at school. And even though I did it alone, I really lent on social media to just get inspiration. And at that same time, running crew culture was exploding. It was the introduction of the coolness. And, I'm a gal from Southeast London. I live very near where the marathon starts, and not cool enough for East London, and I'm not posh enough for West London. Like, London is full of postcode wars. And,
yes.
But I was just this solo SE12 gal. That's my postcode. And I just lived running culture through the eyes of what was being shared on Twitter, and thought, this is cool. And I can pretend I belong because no one knows I exist, and I can just be inspired by them. And I do not know where this confidence came from, but on mile 21, Charlie Dark is leading the cheer zone.
They were there that long ago?
They were there.
Oh,
yeah. They did not know who I was. And out she comes, hands up, as if I was part of the crew. And they went wild for me. But they must have, as soon as I whizzed past, gone, who was that? Because I knew no one. But I thought, you know what, something, whether it's the adrenaline, whether it was the 9 gels I'd had, who knows, something said, run through this as if it's where you belong.
And you knew who they were at that time?
I knew who they were.
You followed them on social media?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. But it took a whole year to be brave enough to actually physically go into the space later. But it's, I guess, what I will stand up very proud, and I know that folks have, there's such troublesome relationships with social media, but if it wasn't for social media, I would not be who I am today, because I found my tribe. Even if I didn't know them, I found them at that stage. And I also found that running wasn't about the horrible spare t-shirt that you had in your bottom drawer. You could feel amazing, look amazing, buy amazing products if that's what you wanted to be. Running could be a sense of style and a sense of person at that time too. So I'm really glad that social media was able to influence that part of me. I felt like I was able to express myself through who I was as a runner at that point as well, which was I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, wow. There's so much there that I want to go down directions. I want to ask Charlie about this when he is coming on the podcast soon. But I want to bring it up, as you mentioned, running on your own too, because when I was in Boston and Charlie was on a panel with Kayla, Carolyn, and Stephanie, he talked about running in the dark on his own because he didn't want anyone to see him. You've talked about running on your own. And I have talked. This is where it blew my mind when I heard Charlie say this. I used to run in the dark on my own because I didn't want anyone to see me. And that would have been 2003 to 6 that I was running on my own in the dark. Now, I think that period of time where you're talking about was a bit of a different period in that running, as you said, was becoming cool. But for me, when I tell Americans that I used to run in the dark on my own because I didn't want anyone to see me, they're like, what? What do you mean? But I really feel in England, and maybe it was changing by 2012, which it probably was, there was a very much sense of running is not something you want to be associated with.
Exactly.
Even for me as someone who was good at it at that point, I didn't want to be I didn't want my friends to know that I cared about it. And so I just really find this fascinating that, you and Charlie are particularly good examples of people who have inspired so many others to run, Charlie's got an MBE, which is, the highest honor for, what would the word be? A civilian, a citizen, or I never know the word. What are we? Everyday people?
I think it's citizen. Yeah.
Can get in the UK. And so for inspiring people, he always says, I'm in the business of inspiring people, not running. But I just find it so interesting that, running, not too long ago was something that people didn't want to do. So I just wanted to mention that there because I just find it so interesting that so many people that inspire me and have inspired others hid. And I hid too. Okay, I want to actually go on to talk about Charlie. You, in that moment, or it took you a year before you really began to, get yourself involved in what Run Dem was doing. We will have an episode more about what Run Dem is and has meant to the running community and how they've been a leader and an example for other races, including my good friend Sid Baptista said, Pioneers was inspired in some part from seeing what Charlie did. Charlie became a very, very important person in your life, particularly with one marathon in particular. You've told me the story, and I would love if you would share it with us.
Of course, thank you. Oh, this is the best. I'm so grateful. Charlie Dark has changed a lot of lives, and one of them is mine. The background is that 2013 came and went. I ran the London Marathon 4 years in a row, and I very proudly for the last 3 of those years ran a Run Dem t-shirt on my chest. So got my outfits together. Thank you. And it's because a very fast and genuine friendship with Charlie formed from that very first moment I met him. I remember the day. It was a launch of a very famous trainer in 2014. There's nothing super about them, but they were amazing. And I'd never run with a group before. In my first group run, and I was like, I need to meet Charlie, and I need to tell him that was me that came through. Why would he remember? Of course he wouldn't remember. But I wanted to just tell him. The 55,000 people, you remember that one stranger? Yeah, of course you do. But in any case, I met him that day and something clicked and thought, I just need to shake off not feeling like I belong. And I went to Run Dem every Tuesday. Tuesday was our meeting in London, in central London, in East London. So South East gal felt confident enough to go to East, cool enough to go to East. And what's important to share again, another part of my story, is that I didn't just click from not feeling like I belonged as a runner to then going on all of these group runs and feeling confident in my ability and my belonging as a runner. No, I would go to the Tuesday meets and Charlie would host housekeeping, which was literally a celebration of others who ran a race that week. It could be a 5K, a 10K, a marathon in this country and another, who knows. You would be presented your medal by Charlie, and then he would share what's coming up or where he needed support or where somebody else in the community might need something. And it would last maybe 30 to 40 minutes. And then they'd go out on their runs and I'd go home. I wouldn't run. And I just would slide off into the background. I was dressed to run, but I slid off. I was like, I don't still feel like I should run here. No one made me feel unwelcome. In fact, I felt so welcome. But I came and stayed because of that vibe of cheerleading and support. And that's where I get it from, most likely.
Yeah.
I made it my own. But I went because I wanted to hear what Charlie had to say, and I wanted to hear what others had to say about others in this community. I was learning, because with Run Dem, it doesn't matter what your job title is or your postcode or your background or your future. You show up because you're united by this love of moving left foot, right foot. And I did love it, but I just didn't feel like I could say that out loud at the time. So it took years. It took years for me to feel confident to go on a crew run. In fact, it was last year.
Was it a speed thing?
Yes, it was a speed thing, but it wasn't because Run Dem didn't cater for speed. There was my pace. My pace is often slower, like the slowest, and that's fine. but there was just something unlocking. There's a guilt that I carry with, I don't want to be last. I don't want to hold anyone up. I don't like it. And it's all good. I tell all that just to encourage folks to be where they want to be. Don't necessarily think that your ability will put you back, because it has not. It took me a long old time to get comfortable with knowing that my left foot, right foot belonged anywhere. So long story long, the build up is that I'm going to Run Dem every week. I help Charlie out. We helped create Mile 21 together one year. It feels amazing. And I've got my family, I've got my tribe, my running family around me. And I run New York twice. I'm lucky enough I was fortunate enough to get a spot in New York 2 years in a row. Or not 2 years in a row, sorry, 2016, 2019. 2016, I was arrogant, and I ran that race not necessarily ever running a hill, and that, bites you eventually. And I didn't really train for it because I'd had all these marathons in my back pocket. I was like, I can do this, fine. And I got through. Charlie was there, and he was at Mile 21 with bridge runners and some other most amazing people. And I came and through, and I cried my eyes out. I was like, I'm really struggling, but I just don't know if I can do this. And so Charlie said, it's fine, you can do this, you've done it before, and you belong here and you belong with us. What do you need? And I was like, I don't need anything, leave me be. Like, I was just down on the world. And
you just stopped, or were you continuing?
No, I was trundling along my own little way, like very much walking. And Charlie at that point took me by my hand and he said, we'll just run a mile together. And I was like, I don't want to run. I want to do this, but I don't want to run. But I am hand in hand with someone that is more than a best friend to me. And we ran a mile, and we got to Mile 22. We passed the noise of Harlem. I said, Charlie, go back to your people, go back to your place. Like, you are celebrating everyone that's coming through, and I'm taking up this space. And I don't want to ruin your day. My day's ruined. I don't want to ruin your day. So I love you for carrying me through, but I can see the home straight. It's like, it feels like 8,000 miles of Fifth Avenue at this point, and I'm just I can't, but I can see it, but I can't see it. But I was like, Charlie, you will have the best moment back at Mile 21. I'm okay. I love you dearly. I will carry you with me. Off you go. And so he let go of my hand. He turned his back on me. I was like, finally, I can walk again. and I was ready to that is my fastest split of that worst marathon ever. And I struggled my way uphill of Fifth Avenue, and the crowds were going, it was getting dark, and it is the most demoralizing feeling when you start seeing the crowds disperse. Right, like, why I love the fact that Charlie and Run Dem are there until the very last person comes through is because they need it just as much as the other people in front of them. Mm-hmm. But I every cheer zone I had in my head of this brand would be here, and this brand would be there, and this group would be there, all gone. It was silence, and it was silence in Central Park as well. It was dark, and I really didn't want to finish in the dark, and I knew I'd be cold, and I was just miserable. Like, it was the worst. I'm so grateful for the experience, but I really didn't feel good in that moment. And before I phoned anyone else, I phoned Charlie when I crossed the finish line. And I said, Charlie, my friend, I'm done. And he went, I know. I said, what do you mean? Look behind you. And he was behind me. He had followed me through all of those miles. And because he was worried, but he also just knew that I needed the guardian angel, that he'd said that I had been that person, not in that way, but I had been that person for him. And it was his moment to just say, hey, I've got you. And he said, every time you look back and every time you started to walk, I was like, I've got to get out of the way in case she looks again. But he followed me every step of the way, and I can't, that's what Charlie does for the world. Does it in very different ways, but I'm so grateful for him.
You've heard me talking about precision for a while, and I know it has been almost a year since I did my last ultra. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting back into it by the end of the year, depending on how my recovery goes, but so far, so good. And in my last ultra and in my future ultras, I intend on using precision. I could not fault it with my last ultra, with many of the marathons that I have run. I am so glad that I finally understand how much fuel I need per hour, how many gels I need, how many carbs I need. A lot of that is thanks to Precision and the free fuel and hydration planner that they have made. They've made it ready for you. You do not have to use any particular thing. You could just go in there, plug your information in, and they will figure it out for you. There's also free consultations if you want to take up that opportunity. You can go to a link in the show notes if you want to check that out. But for today, I just want to remind you that fueling, that getting your hydration right, is the most critical part of running a race to your potential, of getting that goal, getting that whatever that is that you are working towards, that is lighting your heart on fire. That is the key. And Precision makes it so easy for you. Their 30-gram carb gels go down so easy. You don't need water. They just slip straight down. I actually genuinely enjoy taking them, not even including the gel part of it. I would just happily eat them as is, as do the chews. Their flavors are not particularly powerful. They're very easy to take down. You don't get flavor fatigue. And then when it comes to the electrolytes, something that is critical for us runners, they have varying different levels. Again, use that free planner to figure out what you need. You, as a friend of mine, can get yourself 15% off at precisionfuelandhydration.com by using code Tina Sent Me. Use code Tina Sent Me to get yourself 15% off at precisionfuelandhydration.com. There's also links in the show notes. Go check out those gels, go check out the chews and the electrolytes. You're going to love it in your next race, and I can't wait to hear more. Thanks for listening. There's the second time you told me that story, and I've got chills both times. It is the most beautiful example of who Charlie is a human and who you are as a human now. Like, that is literally something you would do. And then my mind goes to how hard that must have been to watch you struggling and knowing that, like, this wasn't your time to go rescue Lorna or his time to go rescue Lorna, that you had to figure it out on your own. You had to get there, but to be there, as you said, like, also kind of half nervous at any moment that, like, that you would turn around and see him. But, like, yeah, as you said, that sums Charlie up. But I have to wonder how you knew how much that moment meant to you. Not only did he hold your hand and get you through that mile, but then being there behind you saying, I got your back. I mean, as I said, that is what you do, Lorna, more than anyone I know. So yeah, like, I'm assuming, and you tell me how that moment, like, kicked up your realization of how important it is to show up for others when they are working through something hard.
100%. I'm living out, like, I would do anything for Charlie, but I would also do anything for others. Like, that, what Charlie has done has caused a ripple effect in so many. And that experience in 2016, which I feel like it was only 2 years ago, it really wasn't. Time is flying. But I have come into my own since then. I ran New York again in 2019, and I threw my hands up and I was like, I do not need you this year. I am fine. And I finished before sunrise and was great. But, you know, again, what's important to share there is that turning point of low lows and struggles. And I laughed at myself. I can laugh at myself a lot at the moment, but I was scrolling back, and in 2016, actually, before, or maybe it was 2017, in any which case, there was a photo of me that I'd posted with 2 medals in my hand, and I was like, goodbye running, we're done. And now I'm doing running every other, like, I literally was like, I do not need to race anymore. I'm absolutely done. I need to step away from this life and forge a new one. And a year later, I'd run another marathon and still in there. So, like, I've tried to break up with it as well. Because
I have too.
Yeah, we all, and you all will. Anyone listening to this that's like, yeah, me too, I am done. I'm like, just give it one more chance. They'll start, it will talk to you into something again. But like, I will never ever forget that moment with Charlie, and I will never forget all he's done for me and continues to do for me. But I can't just live that life debt with someone else. Like, running is so important to share because it has changed and continues to change who I am. Yep. If I find something hard, I go for a run. If I want to celebrate something, I go for a longer run. If I want to get a really good idea on paper, I'll go for a run. And like, that cliche is true too. And if more people don't know that it can unlock so much more than a medal, what can we do? You know, and I also think that, you know, it's not even just the act of running. If you're someone listening to this that doesn't even like to run, and you're listening to an amazing piece of content, but please just run. But it might be that you want to do something else. But watching others run to me unlocks so many amazing feelings and so much inspiration that I take away and just translate into something else as well. So that's the ripple that it was, that turning point was that horrible New York Marathon, thanks to my guardian angel. But it's unlocked so much more for me now.
Oh, it's beautiful. The story. And okay, so then what comes to mind is after that moment, you said that was 2016. You did New York again, 2019. I'm assuming during that time you're building, you know, your confidence in yourself, who you are. You said you didn't run with Run Dem for the runs until last year. Why did that continue? Was it still just that? It's still a hang up. It's still that hang up of my pace doesn't belong, or I don't want to hold people up. But also, I didn't need to, because I run on my own, and I am motivated to run when I need to or want to. So the group runs to me were my anchor of motivation. And my anchor of my community. Yes. I also recognize now when you came to my run with All Beds last year in New York, that was still, I remember you being like, I don't want to hold you up, but you know, I really wanted that to be a fully inclusive event for everyone. And I loved that you and I got to run together in that moment. And also just meeting you in person. That was just the best. But yeah, now I see that was a real rarity for you to come join a group run like that. And so I'm honored that you did join for that. That was a really special. That was really one of my favorite group runs that I've hosted, even though it was, you know, there was a smaller group than typical things, but it was really special. So, okay. We've talked about your kind of, you know, what Run Dem brings you, what your involvement has allowed you to develop within yourself, how you recognize what you need and what feels right to you. You've also said about hard things, challenging yourself. This is something also very important to you, of challenging yourself with things that are very difficult, like doing a vertical kilometer, or doing what was the distance you did at UTMB? I did the baby race, but it was is that 15K? What is it? 15K, yeah. So yeah, but still doing something that's a very intimidating weekend. Like, you know, that there's the best in the world are all there. So choosing things like those, why does that feel like it's important to you to keep challenging yourself, especially when you are someone who maybe struggles with your place and your confidence at times in your own running? Thank you. I do it because it helps break down for me. Signing up for these amazing things, I want to be there. Like, I'm not doing it because it's hard. I'm doing it because I want to do it. Like, it is hard, but like, I want to feel like I belong at the top of that mountain with the person that does it in 35 minutes or 2 hours and 45 minutes. Like, to give you some perspective on that vertical kilometer. I'm also scared of heights, lol. And I'm like, so yeah, therapists would have a field day with this conversation. But the signing up, it's twofold. One, I want to have that experience, and I am a true fan of the sport, and like of trail running and of mountain, like running up and around mountains right now makes me feel alive, and I'm definitely in my trail era. And I went to UTMB this year,
it was my 40th birthday and I wanted to do something special. And I thought I can do this baby race, the ETC, which is 15 kilometers in Italy, but 1,400 meters of vertical climb with a cutoff. And I have never, ever considered myself someone to run a race with a cutoff that would challenge me. You know, like, yes, the London Marathon has an 8-hour cutoff, and that is hard for folks. But that wasn't hard. Like I run a 6-hour, 6.5-hour marathon. So I knew in my ability I could predict that at the time, and I felt confident that I could get through. And if I needed to walk, I could walk, and we've got a 2-hour window. But a mountain race that I have never done before, with a 4-hour 30 cutoff, and the last bus leaves 30 minutes after that, and I would be stranded on the side of the mountain. And I'm 40 years old, and in my brain, I'm like, I should just feel like I could do this. But there's a part of me that's like, maybe I can't.
Yeah.
But we'll try. And I tried. And I did it with 3.5 minutes to go, and I got on the last bus. And I wish it was easier, but it wasn't. And what I hope...
Do you wish it was easier?
I do, because I just didn't want to panic of missing the last bus. I wish I could have got the bus before.
Okay.
But what I hope and I will share, I will always post the photo, even if I really don't like how I look in it. And I always judge by appearance. And I will always share the story. And I'm trying my hardest to share my paces, because I only ever see the 4-minute kilometers or the 4-minute miles by folks. I saw it this weekend with the sub 3-hour marathons and the sub 4-hour marathons, and you are amazing both for doing this, but so are the sub 7 hours. Absolutely, and 8 hours.
100%.
And pace doesn't matter. And I'm coining this phrase right now, like in the UTMB world, you challenge yourself for a golden ticket to run the race as an elite. You run another 100 miler to get your golden ticket to Western States or UTMB. And your last hour, like the last hour before the cutoff, is called the golden hour. I want to have a golden hour ticket. Like, I want to celebrate the golden hour, Zaza. And I dream of running an ultra in that weekend, in the cutoff. Like I train like an elite to get to the cutoff, and that's okay. You know, like
yes.
And people need to realize that it's, you know, I'm not going to be. I will be inspired by the amazingness of Courtney Dauwalter. I was inspired by her this morning. She just won another one. But I won't get to that stage. That's not who I am. That's not my body. But my body is still going to run every mile that she will run around that loop. And I will experience the same. Well, I won't experience the same, because she'll run in darkness at different times and blah, 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 blah. But the essence of, we will experience that air together in 14 hours or in 48. Or in whatever that might be. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's super important that folks like I that struggle to reach those, that you know, want to be there, can be there. It's only ourselves that are putting ourselves back, basically.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, and as someone who's run at the front and then at the very back, Kaylee running a 10-hour marathon when I did New York last year, like, I have seen it all the way. I am happy to report that in New York, at least, there were people cheering for us, even though we were out there for 10 hours. I definitely think there's more people supporting the whole way. The finish is always loud. New York does an amazing job of celebrating the final finishes. And also, on a side note, Leadville has a pretty big crowd in the last hour before the cutoff to celebrate those people who are like just about making it under the cutoff, which I really like. But yeah, as someone who's been out there all those times, I can, as you said, you're running every mile, and it is harder to be out there all that time. I mean, that's so much more time for your brain to come up with excuses and for reasons to come out of it or not do it or give up or all these other things. You know, it really is more difficult. And as you said, I think it is so, so important that the running community recognize that. And that's a lot, honestly, why this podcast is the way it is. Like, I don't really have elites on anymore. Like, occasionally Fiona O'Keefe is an environmental activist. That spoke to my heart, obviously. But beyond that, I really believe in just bringing on people who are inspiring others in other ways. So
could I shout out actually a previous guest before you go? I was recalling the gorgeous Tim Tollefson sharing that. And Tim is one of those people that I recently watched the Koros film that was produced, that he was leading the pack of this 100-mile race and ended up falling back to 33rd. And what he said in that moment, as an elite, as a sponsored athlete, he said, people dream of running this. And my ego could let me stop, but my heart wants to go on because I want to run this race. It doesn't matter where I come.
Yeah.
I want to run it. And my Lord, I was so inspired by that, because he could, within his rights, I only ever see elites drop out or push themselves to a limit. And to have him, he's now in my heart for however I run now, because I'm like, yeah, it is a gift that I'm running this. And somebody else would murder to do this, and or whatever it might be. Even me, as little old Lawns, who is the invisible cheerleader that you didn't even know existed until today, it's still a privilege that I get to run, whether it's park run, whether it's a mountain race, whatever it is still a privilege. And I think that's something that it doesn't matter what your pace is, it's a privilege to put left foot, right foot in front of each other.
Beautifully said. I think that actually is a perfect place to wrap this, Lorna. I couldn't have said it better myself. Are there any final words you want to leave the listeners with?
Oh, I think if you're curious about anything, look for someone who's doing it and cheerlead for them, because you'll learn something new about that. So
true. Beautiful. Lorna, I will share for people to go follow you. 100% recommend that for listeners. I just appreciate that big heart of yours. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for you and your friendship. Can't wait to see you again sometime soon. And thank you for not only taking what Charlie has done for you and sharing it with us, but then passing it on to other people. And I'm sure, you have then in turn spread that to other people who are now doing that because of you, and hopefully more because of this episode. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tina. And thank you for being you. I love you dearly.
Love you too. Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. To Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful. To Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer. And finally, to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. Thank you so much for listening today. I am glad that you got to know Lorna, got to hear about her story and her journey and what made her who she was. I hope you were inspired by her. I hope you go find her and follow her. She's amazing to learn from and grow from. And you can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes by going to runningforreal.com/episode 397. You will also find links in there to our sponsors. You can check out Tracksmith and get that $15 off your order of $75 or more. To AG1, that free 1 year of vitamin D3 and K2 plus 5 free travel packs for UK, US, Canada, and Europe. And also True Precision. Get that 15% off. Also the hydration and fuel planner that you definitely need to check out if you aren't 100% on what you should be eating and drinking during a race. So you can again find all that at runningforreal.com/episode 397. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.